Assalamu alaikum, dear students. It is week 6 and and video 3. We are talking about the settlement patterns in subcontinent. Fine. The population settlement patterns in the subcontinent, and in this way we are actually covering from a chronological order. Fine, that how the settlement in India may change from one nation to another nation. Okay, in the Mughal era, as I was talking about, that most of the lands were under the Mughal controls. In the time of Aurangzeb Alamgir Rahimahullah, almost entire India was in his control, including Bengal, means Bangladesh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Kashmir, Punjab, okay, even Kabul, Kandahar, Badakhshan, these areas were under his control, and that was such a mighty empire. But with the downfall, with the death of Aurangzeb and the fight for the throne weakened this Sultanate rapidly, and in the area of Lahore and especially in Gujranwala, Sikh emerged as a power. Till 1840, fine, the Sikh leader Raja Ranjit Singh conquered almost the entire land. He conquered Lahore, he conquered the areas like Gujranwala, Gujarat, all others, conquered Multan. He even conquered almost the Indian Punjab like Haryana and Chandigarh, and even Himachal Pradesh, and one of his leader conquered Jammu and Kashmir, and they almost had covered a huge land that was annexed to Kashmir till Taxla and Aptabad and Hazara and Haripura, and they were all the names of the Sikh. Even they had influence till Peshawar. In this time, the Sikh were the most powerful ones, and much of the land in Punjab was owned by this clan. For example, the Sikh landowners were very stronger clan. They were even the rulers of the different areas. But at the same time, till after 1840, after the Britishes were emerged from these land, and they took back the Punjab, they took Punjab from the Sikhs, and they started changing their the settlement pattern. Now, from Sikhs, we mainly will discuss the British. Look at this, students. Britishes were mostly the seafarers. They came through the sea. The first proper person named historically Vasco da Gama. He came and set means and anchored on Calicut, these areas, fine, Rajkumari and these areas, and he came here, set foot on India. At the time, it was under the control of the I think so, the Britishes, the Mughals were not started yet, but it was 1492 something when he came and had visited these areas. Later on, with the establishment of East India Company, the route became safe, and they started establishing their colonies at Bombay and Chandigarh and these areas, fine, Suratgarh and fine. Soon they involved in conspiracies against the state, and the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan punished them. They uh, sought forgiveness and pay ransom to the king and promised to be uh, faithful. But later on, these Britishers coloniers had means got the true means they were impressed by the wealth and the vastness of this richest land. They started weaving conspiracies, and gradually they captured these soils, these coastal areas, and started developing their clear influence. Fine. In almost 1700, they had conquered much of them. In 1773 or around, they had defeated Nawab Sirajuddaulah in Bengal, and again Tipu Sultan in Mysore. Fine. And this was their last hurdle clear, and they started emerging. And now it is the shift of the uh, land and land acquisitions. These people, Britishers would make traitors, Gaddar, and they would give them the lands. Whatever the land they would capture, they would pay heavy ransom on them. Fine. You have seen Indian movie Lagan. There you find out how they used to be exploiters and how they would capture the land and they forced the Indians. Gradually, they started capturing the lands. Interestingly, these lands were owned by Muslims mostly. These areas like Bangladesh and Odisha and Andhra Pradesh and these almost the very important areas of India, Kerala and others, they were mostly controlled by the Muslims, and Muslims have established their businesses over. Britishers would capture the land and they had their own principle. Find what whenever a king would have didn't have any higher, the land was annexed to the government. This area is still it was called British India. When the Britishers entered into these areas now, Pakistan, and number one, they came into Punjab. Okay, here they conquered Lahore and they included many conspiracies and traitors were given, and a huge list of traitors is expressed that the people now in mostly in government and others, their forefathers hashed treasons and they were given the land. Okay. During this, the first thing is after 1857, the downfall of Delhi, the Muslims were deprived from their land. They were killed. They were banished to these areas. Okay, it was a huge shift, and the land was replaced by Hindus and others, British loyal people. Okay, for example, Delhi, once the Muslim city, now there is quite less population of Muslim as compared to the Hindus. Hindus are large in number in Delhi. Fine, clear. Otherwise, Delhi used to be the capital of India for many years. Okay. After this, these people were deprived and they lost. Muslims started migrating their territories from this vast India into a corner. Okay, some forced into the mountains like Nepal, Sikkim, and Bhutan, and okay. The others, they were on the Janubi Hind, clear South India. From Muslims had to fled into these regions like in Pakistan. They were just like uninhabited regions, and the land was mostly owned by the tribes. There were no proper settlement. Second phase of the settlers became when in 1920, Tehreek-e-Khilafat hai Tehreek-e-Reshmi Rumal, that was led by mostly these areas and the people. Muslims led this. Again, the Britishers became the enemy of Muslims, and they expelled the Muslim from these lands, and their lands were given to the people, and those people flee to these areas, now Pakistan. Okay, and they got settled, they hid their identities. Okay, and they started living like nomads. You find many people of the same. Okay, in 1885, another mega transition happened. That was that all the rivers that which flow from Kashmir, the Britishers came with a mega plan of the canal system, irrigation system. Irrigation system has two ones. Number one, they established the irrigation system. Number two, they established their army. Clear? Ghodi Pal, this is a very interesting thing, that they invited many people from Punjab, Indian, and the Eastern Punjab. Clear? They gave them one horse against two murabba zameen. There are many canal zameens. These people would means they would nurse the horse for the British, कि वो उसके लिए वो घोड़ा पालते थे, और उनको 2 मुरब्बे तक ज़मीन दी गई थी. सो मोस्टली सरगोदा, खुशाब, फैसलाबाद, Bahawalpur, and many areas of Punjab, they were settled at that time. Okay, the say canals were built, headworks were built, and the people would given their land, and that's how these people at the coming times became very important, and they become the more they were called landlords of these areas. Otherwise, these areas in the middle of rivers used to be jungle, thick jungle. Fine, there was no cultivation, but now they are the best areas in the world. Second thing, that most of the population before the irrigation system, and I'm talking about 1885, before 1885, these people would, the most of the population would live in the Potwar region, in the highlands where the irrigation was common, and with the air, from the rain, they would grow their fields. Or most population was on the banks of river, like on the both banks of rivers like Attak and KPK. Fine, banks of rivers of Sindh and Jhelum and Chenab, there were some of the cultivations possible, and the people would live. But after the British had established canal system, and the lands were started irrigating and flowing properly, and they started producing the foods, and this is how the people of Punjab, especially between the Jhelum till Lahore, they became very much prosperous people of the region. And at the same time, when in Sargodha, means the crops were produced, and the people would live with strong, and they became more more well off than the people used to be in the past. Another development was with the help of, due to these canal systems, that the Pashtun Kabiles dwelling here from came to Afghanistan and settled around the banks of these rivers. They were not having any identity. They were neither under the control of Afghanistan, neither they were under the control of British directly. They were in the buffer state. But when Britishers came, they developed headworks. Clear? They gave rights of land to these people. Okay, so all these Khans, now you see that they own the land. That land has not been given by Afghanistan kings or landowners. That was given by the Britishers. They made them the Khans. They covered the land, okay, and they were given the roots of land just because the Britishers want to have a strong settlement on these areas where they could find the laborers, they would find their rivers and other systems be preserved by the people. So this is how these areas around Mardan and Charsada and these are flourished, and they became more civilized, and they are more different as compared to Karak and Kohat and other areas. Okay, interesting fact is this, that the people of KPK couldn't flourish as compared to the people of Punjab and others, because Punjabis were more tendency to slavery. They accept slavery of Britishers for the land and other material interests. But the Pashtun and these areas, they were naturally against, and they used to fight against the Britishers. That's how they didn't gave the rights to these people, and there was not any development made. But most of the development was made in Punjab, okay, some part of the Sindh like in Karachi, but rest all the development was made in India. And now you find that the British India is the different in culture approach rather than the central India and then the other parts of Pakistan. Thank you very much.